When Esteban Ocon secured the Renault seat alongside Daniel Ricciardo for 2020, it was justifiably hailed as the return of a promising rising star who never deserved to be off the Grand Prix grid. But so far, his return has not gone as planned. Ocon has only outqualified Ricciardo once, in the wet qualifying session for the Styrian Grand Prix. There, Ocon drove superbly and was 5th fastest, having been on course for 3rd before a big moment in the penultimate corner on used wets. But in dry conditions, the gap has consistently been between 0.2 and 0.4 seconds from the 3rd race of the season in Hungary onwards. Ocon has only finished ahead of Ricciardo once, in the 70th anniversary Grand Prix at Silverstone in the first 10 races of the season. And that was only because Ricciardo spun and slipped behind his teammate. So despite being a consistent points finisher this year, taking a best of 5th in the Belgian Grand Prix after that last lap pass on Alex Albon, Ocon has not reached the heights of Ricciardo. Most recently, Ocon finished 7th in the Russian Grand Prix at Sochi, having run as high as 4th after slipping past Ricciardo just before the safety car was deployed on the first lap. But after a strong first stint that he believed represented his best of the season, Ocon struggled after switching to the hard tyres and was ordered to let his teammate past. He also lost time early in his second stint behind Sebastian Vettel, who had yet to stop, so fell behind Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc. So has Ocon, who after all was talked of as a potential Mercedes driver and still has links to the team despite being contracted to Renault, been found out, as some have suggested? To answer that question, we need to look a bit more deeply than simply the results, and be realistic about what is possible for a driver returning after over 18 months out of racing. So what are the encouraging signs? Firstly, it's important to factor in how well Ricciardo is driving and the fact he is a formidable teammate with a year's head start on Ocon at Renault. While the two have ostensibly similar driving styles, Ricciardo is hugely accomplished at keeping the minimum speed high in the corners, an area where Ocon has often struggled to match him, despite also favouring a relatively smooth style that aims to carry speed into and through the corner. After his initial struggles on the brakes and in corner entry at Renault, Ricciardo refined his approach to the characteristics of the Renault and has tremendous dynamic control over it at corner entry. Effectively, he produces a smooth style, but in an attacking manner. This is something Ocon has been working on and that he has improved since the start of the season. There are signs he's growing in his comfort with the Renault, and while his average deficit of Ricciardo in qualifying is too big, it's only just over half of the kind of deficit Albon is trying to make up to Max Verstappen. What is clear is that Ocon appears unable to match what Ricciardo is doing with the same level of control, hence looking a little more ragged than normal. In qualifying for the Tuscan Grand Prix at Mugello, he looked like he could qualify close to Ricciardo, or perhaps even beat him, having been just 0.054 seconds down in Q2, but then he spun on his 1Q3 run. The pace and the fact he made that mistake probably are not unrelated. He's certainly trying. Ocon also faced problems earlier in the season, with complaints about a down-on-power engine at the 70th anniversary Grand Prix legitimate, given the switch to a fresh engine for Spa fixed that problem. So it hasn't all been plain sailing, but even so, for Ocon to live up to the expectations that he can deliver at the very top in F1, he still needs to raise his game further. Ocon is very aware of this, and the apparent Mugello step was the result of some serious work with the team to modify both his approach and the car. He talked of improving setup choices, being more comfortable in the car, and working to gel more with the team. His hope is that he will soon be able to match Ricciardo. So it's now down to Ocon to continue to build on that and ensure that the story of the rest of the year is a better one, because the stakes are very high for him. He's a high-quality driver, one who made it to the top despite coming from a relatively modest family background, based on his ability. He won titles in European Formula 3, beating a certain Max Verstappen, and GP3 before his graduation to F1 with Manor via a brief stint in the DTM. Then he showed well during 2 years at Racing Point. He is a fast driver and one who unquestionably has the potential to win races. But this is the first time he has been tested at this level against as strong a teammate as Ricciardo. With the run of triple headers over, he now has a little more time to analyse, take stock and improve himself as he bids to show he can get on to Ricciardo's level in the closing stages of the season. We're now talking about perhaps 2 or 3 tenths of a second over a lap, such are the fine margins at the top of F1. although as Sochi showed, he also has work to do in the races as well. Ocon must ensure he generates some momentum to carry into 2021, where he will be taking on one of the toughest teammates of all, Fernando Alonso. Let us know if you think Ocon will have any chance against Alonso at what will be renamed Alpine next year, or if he can't quite live up to the hype.